I want to talk a little bit about robots and artificial intelligence programs. I'm sure that's not the top your priorities to deal with today, but I think we need to talk about it. There are many things that people, particularly my age, would rather avoid. You don't have to deal with lots of things if you don't want to. You can actually decide to live in the past, to let your clothes be kind of out of style, let your house be look like inside like it would have 30 years ago, and let the younger people comment on that, like your children and grandchildren, because it's comfortable. And to some extent, we need to do that. We need to understand that we are people of our own times and own placement in time. But if we wish to live and continue to be engaged with the people around us, then we have to deal with certain issues that are occurring in the world. I started making this series of videos because I've written a book called Christianity Through the Looking Glass. And like Alice in Wonderland, I feel like believers have landed in kind of a new era to where they can hardly imagine how to talk to their neighbors and friends and even to their own family members. This is one of those topics that may not come up in your family, but they do come up in mine. And they come up, of course, in colleges and other places where I deal from time to time. Are robots and artificial intelligence programs persons? Well, it's easy to say that they're not. I mean, our intuition says that they're not. But your grandchildren may not be so sure. And in fact, many people around you right now may not be so sure. There have been numbers of people who have now been taken into by artificial intelligence programs and have dealt with them as though they are sentient, that they feel and express themselves as persons. But the concept of personhood itself is slippery, actually. Ancient people, for example, did not use the word persons to refer to individuals, and I think we've referred to that several times in these videos. The concept of personhood actually emerged in Christian theology. In the first 300 and 400 years of Christian era, Christians were trying to figure out how they could express monotheism in a way that was consistent with the faith as they had received it from their Jewish ancestors, and also the fact that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we have an incarnate God in Jesus Christ, and then there's the power and presence of the Holy Spirit. In what way were we to receive this one God as being expressed in these three different ways? And so all kinds of solutions were found or tried out. But ultimately, the church settled in on the word persona, which they borrowed from the theater. Persona was a mask used in the drama, and you've probably seen some of these. They're on sticks, and they hold them in front of their face, and that allowed them to say, I am projecting myself in a certain way that's considered a person. So as time went on, people began to think of themselves as persons, particularly Christians, that God was looking at us not as in Buddhism, where we disappear into the Godhead, but that in fact that our personhood becomes more pronounced and we become more and more of a person as we interact with God and with other human persons. The law sees personhood as a legal term. So if you sue IBM, good luck with that. You will be given an assigned name. That case will be given a assigned name, Billy Jones versus IBM. Billy Jones, a human person, versus IBM, which is a person before the law. So the word person is used in different kinds of sense. We don't think of animals as persons, even those of us who believe that animals have rights and that we want to make sure that animals are treated fairly and humanely. And I believe that God gives animals a role in our lives that is to be respected. We cannot treat animals just as we please, because though I do not believe they're made in God's image and likeness, nonetheless, they bear God's character in a certain sense, and we are in relationship with them, and we're responsible for the way that we treat them spiritually. Persons have a sense of agency. I can make my mind up to do something, whereas animals work from instinct or training. Human beings, though not all people agree with this, have a sense of agency to where they deliberately make choice or not. So when we begin to look at artificial intelligence, including robots, we are going to begin to have to wrestle with whether these are persons or not. And it may well be that in some cases the law will make them legal persons, as we do with IBM. But what's a Christian to do? Well, a Christian has a format, if we'll think about it, about how to treat these entities. The Apostle Paul tells us that nations and states have a personality of sorts. He called them powers and principalities. And we're to respect them. They have a presence in our life, they have influence in our life, but we are not to treat them like God. And we're not to be in awe of them. There are clear lines about this in terms of our patriotism. We can be patriots. We should be patriots. We should love our country and we should care for it, pray for it, serve our country. But we have to be careful that it doesn't take the place of God. There are times when a person's country acts in ways that one cannot affirm. And when that occurs, a Christian is responsible morally to draw a line and say, I love my country, but God first. And what I believe that God has taught me how to live and behave comes first. So the state is kind of a person in my life in a way, but it's like a pseudo-person. It's a quasi-person. And artificial intelligence is like that, and so are robots. They will get more and more intelligent. There will come a time when personal assistant will be like for the elderly. I may see this in my own time, to where you have a robot presence in your life that's making sure your vital signs are good and report to the doctor what's going on with you and writes letters for you and all that kinds of things. We already have that in cars. Artificial intelligence programs are driving some people's cars, not mine. I don't have one of those yet, but I probably will need to get one, probably long before I think I need it. But these are the kinds of things that we're going to have to be wrestling with. I began this series, like I said, because I feel like that we have dropped into a new era, and potluck suppers and gospel singings and just hanging around the church and being good people just isn't going to cut it. We're going to have to figure out what our faith says about how we are to live in a very, very new time. We can get angry about it, hostile, say I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pretend that this stuff matters to me and all that. You can do that if you wish, but in time you're just simply irrelevant. We've got to figure out how we believe that God expects us to live and behave with social entities and internet entities and robotic entities, because this is not the far future like we see in science fiction movies. This is the near future. It's already on us. The revolution has already begun. When I wrote my manuscript that's about to be released as a book in a few months, I thought that we were about 10 years away, and that's what I said. I had to go back and revise that. We're not 10 years away. This is already on us. Your Facebook and your Google, all those things now are being embedded into intelligence program, and these artificial intelligence programs read the web, and increasingly they'll talk to you, and you'll not be able to be sure whether you're talking to a real live person or an artificial person. Also, in our political things coming up, we won't know if the dirt that's being stirred up against a candidate is or is not real. We'll see the videos. We'll say, there he is, shaking hands with the devil or whatever. And it will be completely made up, including the voice. Human voices will be reproduced, and you'll get calls from loved ones saying that they're in distress, send them money, and you'll swear that it's their voice, but it's not. So we've got a lot of work to do ahead in figuring out how to do this, not only as a society, but as believers. And one thing we recall is that we're taught not to be idolatrous, that we shall have no other gods before the one true God. And that means that we cannot be in awe of these things. We have to realize, even though they're impressive, they are the products of human hands. Thanks for listening.